right, so this should be episode 41 of Both Laugh, the Dying Scene Quarantine chat show, even though we're not really in quarantine anymore, I guess. And this episode, I'm really excited about this. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while since, especially the last album came out. But we've got Nate Cook, who you might know from the Yawpers, and he's embarking on a really cool and amazing endeavor tomorrow.
Yes.
Nate, thanks for doing this. I appreciate
Thank
you
you
taking the
for
time.
having me. I really appreciate it.
So yeah, as I was sort of hinting at, you're leaving tomorrow to go on a bike ride. Just
I am.
a little bike ride from
A quick
Brooklyn to
jaunt.
Los Angeles.
That's right. Yeah, with stops in Chicago and Austin. So we're taking the long way.
So where did this idea come from? I will tell you, this is sort of a full circle moment for me. I've been doing interviews in one format or another for Dying Scene for 10 years now. And the very first one I did was with a guy named Kenny Livingston, who was the drummer for the band Sugar Cult, amongst other
Okay.
bands. And probably 10 years ago, he had this idea to buy a beach cruiser, like a 3-speed beach cruiser, and start
Uh-huh.
in Huntington Beach, California, and go to Washington, D.C.
Woo. Okay. Yeah.
As on a beach cruiser as a way to raise money for like public school lunches and stuff like that. It was
Oh, that's
about
so
nutrition
cool.
and health. And he ended up going, yeah, all the way to Washington, D.C. So that was the very first interview I did, was somebody biking from LA to the East Coast. And so 10 years later, here we are, and you're going backwards. But how
Yeah.
did this come about? I'm as a longtime avid road cyclist, it's always an idea that I've like toyed around with, but would never ever do. But where did this come from? This is fascinating to me.
The pandemic kind of just put me in a position where I was either going to drink myself to death or figure something else out, and I hadn't been on a bike in probably like a decade. And so as soon as I got back onto cycling, it just like kind of was immediately like a super addictive for me. And I just started biking like every single day, everywhere, as far as I could, all the time. And last year, kind of on a lark, I decided I wanted to go ahead and just do like a long distance cycle ride, and I wanted to, maybe go like 700 or 800 miles. And I picked Tulsa, and I was just gonna do it kind of as a just for me sort of thing. And then I was like, well, why not try and leverage my platform a little bit and try and give back to um, the community that's been so good to me. So decided to ride for Sweet Relief, which provides financial relief for musicians that are in dire straits. And so this year, when I was planning this, I wasn't planning on anything being open. So I didn't think that touring was going to be an option. Obviously, that's kind of the landscape has changed since then a bit. Everything's kind of starting to open back up. But I really wanted to just kind of up the game, and I figured this would probably be the last year I get to do something like this, because I'll probably be on tour for the rest of my life.
Right.
So I was like, well, maybe it is probably my only opportunity to do it. So I decided that this was going to be the year that I went big. So yeah, just wanted to do ride for the same organization, but just do a much larger scope. And here we are.
How much training did you do last year to go from essentially not really riding a bike for 10 years to decide to go, okay, I'm going to do 700 miles? Like how much training did that involve?
I started biking at the end of May of last year, and my bike ride last year, I believe, was at the beginning of September. And I had done like 1 century, and I was biking a lot. I was deeply unprepared. And wasn't, and I feel like maybe even more so this year, because it's just the magnitude of it this year is just a lot larger. But yeah, no, I mean, training, I don't know, I'm very unfocused, very very haphazard, and I don't know, it worked out. I don't know, but no, I would say that my training was minimal. Unfortunately.
What did you have for a bike? I read that you got sort of like a beater or a secondhand bike or something like
I
that when you
did.
first started.
I had like a Bikes Direct like signature model, something or other. It's like a no-name brand.
Yeah.
And that was what I was riding. Initially, I started on a hybrid and then moved over to a road cycle. But it was like, a $300 bike, and that's what I did it on. This year, considering the scope, I upgraded to carbon fiber frame and just normal cyclist douchey shit. I've got my Trek SL5 now, and yeah, I'm pretty stoked to. I honestly have ridden it maybe a grand total of 50 miles so far. I've kind of just been like waiting to like break it in.
So
So
what
we'll
have you
see.
been riding up until then? Have you still been on the
I was still riding. I was still riding that Bikes Direct.
Oh, that's great.
I was training for an Ironman, which I just did a couple of weeks ago or a week and a half ago or
Yeah.
something. That was on a road bike, and my gravel bike would not have been a good substitute for that. So I decided that I was just going to ride my old bike until basically this trip. So that's where I'm at.
It's probably like, to make a baseball reference, but it's probably like, guys that are in the on deck circle and they've got the weight around the bat trying to like, and so that when they take the weight off, then it feels lighter. It's probably a little bit like that to go from riding. Cause for people that don't know, like a cheap bike is heavy. Like
yes, they can be. My gravel bike is slightly heavier than my road bike, but not by much, and it's so much more comfortable. So I think that that's going to be the big thing. I'll tell you what I didn't plan on. I was looking at my route today. I think in the first 6 days of this ride, there's 25,000 feet of elevation that I'm going to have to do, going through Pennsylvania. I don't know. It's just taking me some while.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I didn't bother looking at that until today. So I'm a little bit panicked because tomorrow I think tomorrow's 4,000 feet over 70 miles, and the following day's 5,500 feet over 70 miles.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm on the East Coast, and that wouldn't have even dawned on me. Because you're not coming to like the White Mountains or whatever, like in New Hampshire. You're going.
Well, I think I'm going through the Poconos.
Yeah, I forgot that those existed.
So that should be interesting. I'm not much of a climber, and I kind of fucked my knee up doing this Ironman a little while ago, and so I'm kind of just recovering from it. So I'm a little bit nervous. But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe this will be a very short-lived endeavor. Who knows?
How did you plan your route? Did you follow like a route that somebody else had done previously, or did you throw darts at a map?
I honestly picked cities that I thought I could do well in as a solo artist, and then just plugged it into this app called Komoot, which is a pretty great long distance endurance riding app that does that sort of stuff. I have done almost no research on whether or not the route's actually, salient, and whether or not it's safe. So this is going to be in standard fashion for me, going to be very seat of my pants. And I mean, there's only so much you can plan. I mean, I can't call, every tourism board in every city and be like, hey, is it safe to bike on this road? You know what I mean? So,
right.
But no, I'm definitely not following any prescribed route. And that could be my undoing. We'll see.
A very punk rock DIY nationwide bike tour.
That's right. Exactly.
How much training are you able to do at climbing and elevation? Where do you do most of your riding?
Thank goodness that I do most of it in Colorado, which is where I'm from. But I don't spend a whole lot of time climbing. I'm kind of a pussy in that way. It's not my
no, believe I get it.
Yeah, I want to go fast. You know what I mean? That's all I really care about. So so this is going to be, for an out of the gates first few days, 25,000 feet is going to fuck me up. So this should be pretty agonizing, but I'm excited to give it a shot.
Yeah, that seems overwhelming.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I was telling some friends of mine who aren't cyclists, and they were like, okay, yeah, that seems fine. But I think anybody who's a cyclist, even like especially at my level, like very mid-tier, bottom rung, doing this for the first time, that's a lot of elevation.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I'll try to go around where I live just north of Boston, and we have hills in our area, but I would much rather go for a longer ride that's flatter than go for a shorter ride in my neighborhood and like through the hills. I'm like, no, I'll just go that way, because
that's fine. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'd rather go 100 miles than like 20 miles of hills. Unfortunately, tomorrow is, I think, 73 miles of mountains. So
where are you leaving from? Brooklyn, from New York City?
I'm leaving from Horace Greeley's statue in Manhattan, which is in City Hall Park. Horace Greeley was the person who came up with the quote that is the namesake for my ride. And so I figured it would be fitting to leave from his statue. Although interestingly, I basically leave City Hall Park and then just bike to a ferry. So it's going to be kind of an underwhelming start. I'm going to get all fucking amped up, throw on like Eye of the Tiger, and then immediately get on a fucking boat.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I'm doing that, and then I think I landed in New Jersey, in Newark, and then from Newark, I'm trying to make it just north of Allentown in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's Horace Greeley, coincidentally, I believe, from my home state of New Hampshire,
Oh,
if I'm not
okay. Yeah.
mistaken. Yeah. Or at least he's got family ties, because
I gotcha.
the big like city park in the town that I grew up in was called Greeley Park, named
Okay.
after people in his family. Yeah, for those that don't know, the ride is rather funnily titled "Go West, Aging Man." Instead of "Go
Yeah.
West, Young Man," it's "Go West, Aging Man," which I think
Yeah.
is great.
Thank you.
So what's the plan? Do you have somebody following along with you? Do you have like a support van and all that stuff? Or?
So it's complicated this year. I drove out in my band's Sprinter, and it has all my gear. But I'm moving all of my stuff to a friend's vehicle who's going to follow me for the first week. My plan initially was to go self-supported, and then my mother heard about it and insisted that she follow me the entire way, regardless of whether or not I wanted her there. So now my
Yeah.
mom is joining in a week and will be following me from basically Pittsburgh to Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have somebody basically going to Pittsburgh with you, and then, or
Yes,
that
and then mom takes over.
that's pretty great. And I
Yeah,
have to imagine my parents would do the same thing. Yeah.
yeah. 2 months with my mother on a grueling physical endeavor should be interesting. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
It'll be extra motivation for you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's right. I can't fail in front of my mothers. Yeah,
seriously.
just that extra weight. Great. I can't wait.
You got a bunch of sponsors on board. I know Sierra Nevada's involved. I know Jam in the Van is involved. How did you sort of undertake that, or was that because of
Kind
like
of.
Sweet Relief? Or
Jam in the Van was were the first people I got in contact with, really. And Sierra Nevada had done last year's ride, but Jam in the Van came on board essentially as somebody who was seeking sponsors on my behalf. So once I had Jam in the Van, all the other sponsors kind of came with them. They went out and recruited and did all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so I mean, they've been fantastic, thank God, because I would not be able to afford to do this. Yeah, it's been great. We got Quad Lock on, GoPro is on. There's a musician out of the Boulder area named Jace Allen who's doing it. We've got really great sponsors this year. Attack Pick. So yeah, there's some cool people that are doing it. Yeah.
What did I want to ask you? Yeah, there's a lot of things I wanted to ask you. I'm trying to pare down for time, but
For sure.
can people ride along with you? Is that a thing? Like, if people know where you're going to be, if they're chronicling and following you along, can they?
I'm not going to stop anybody.
Yeah.
It hasn't been like part of the kind of, the public narrative yet. Although I always love when like cycling teams come out and meet me in cities and that sort of thing. So I think that'll probably happen. I know that I've got, so this year, a musician from San Francisco hit us up and asked if she could ride under the GxAx banner. GxAx is the name, like the kind of parent name for the event. And she's riding from Seattle to Portland, Maine. And she's already on her ride, and she's doing it under the GxAx banner, raising money for Sweet Relief as well. So there's that happening, and then there's a couple cyclists. I think two out of Tulsa that are going to be riding with me for a good portion of the ride, and then I have some people coming down from Denver to meet me in New Mexico, and possibly bike across Death Valley with me in August, which should be really fun.
When did she leave Seattle? Like, just now? Because it's been as hot as it has ever been in the Pacific Northwest.
It's crazy. It's fucking unbelievable. I don't. Yeah, it's really inopportune timing. But she left maybe 10 days ago or something like that. So she's in it.
She's in it. Yeah.
I think she's in Montana now. But I still think it's probably just brutally hot. I was looking at the weather tomorrow. Thank God it looks like we're going to get some respite coming out of New York. But right after that, the next week is all hundreds. I think I'm going to be riding in 3 digits pretty much the entire ride.
Well, I mean, it is July, I suppose. But yeah, I have good friends that are in Idaho. And I was scrolling through Instagram just before we started talking, and they're at their kids' baseball game. And it is 99 degrees in wherever Idaho they're in.
Fucking Idaho. God, that's insane.
I will tell you where I am right now. Like I said, just north of Boston, it is 54 degrees and rainy. It was 100 degrees on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it was 53 degrees out last night leaving the Bouncing Souls show. So,
oh my God, we got absolutely demolished in New York last night. Like it was raining so fucking hard. It's actually kind of cool today, but yeah, what with the drive out here, the AC on my van is out. So it was
oh no.
driving from Denver to New York over the course of 3 days in like 105-degree weather, fucking Tennessee and shit. And it was brutal. Oh my God, that was bad.
Yeah. So, are you going to keep your documenting things on social media? People can find you and follow along that way. And
Yeah, so GoPro sent me a bunch of stuff, and so I'll be doing a bunch of raw footage and sending it to Jam in the Van, who's going to edit like some updates. And then there's also a film crew out of Los Angeles that has started kind of the nascent process of starting a documentary on the ride. So they'll be joining for a good portion of the ride. I think they meet up with me in Chicago and then follow me to Los Angeles. So there's all kinds of footage. I don't know when it's going to be coming out. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm just sending off the raw and letting it. I can't handle it. I'm not total. Yeah.
And you've got shows coming up along the way, like you said too, right? Chicago, Tulsa, Austin, something like that.
Yeah, Chicago. My first show's in New York tonight.
Yeah.
And then Chicago, I believe on the 17th, and then Tulsa the 31st, Dallas, Austin, possibly Phoenix, and then we're finishing in Los Angeles with a show as well. So yeah, that's probably going to be the hardest part of the ride, just because I don't know if you said that you're a cyclist. My ulnar nerve gets collapsed from riding, and it makes it very difficult to play.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern right now, is that I'm just actually physically going to be incapable of playing, but we'll see.
That's the best tagline you could have for a 2-month cycle journey is we'll see.
Yep.
And then what's the plan after that? Once you get to Los Angeles and I would assume rest for a month, what's the plan after that? Is the Yawpers going back out on the road, or?
We have some shows booked in. Well, you have a show booked in 2 shows. One in Los Angeles. The band is coming out to play the final date, and then we have a show in Denver. Then I'm going to Japan for a little bit, just on vacation, and I think that we're planning on going back on the road in January.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, 2021 is gonna just kind of remain a wash. I think we all want to keep our eye on like what happens with the next few months, because it still feels, I mean, as much as open as everything is, it still feels a little, tenuous as to how this whole thing is going to play out. So we're just kind of waiting for now, I think.
Yeah. After being out last night, I've had people say, "Oh, what's next on your schedule?" And I said, honestly, I don't know. Like, I wanted to see how last night went. For a variety of reasons.
For sure.
Yeah.
How did they handle the distancing? Was there any masking, or was it just
all the staff at the House of Blues in Boston, they all had masks on. There were, let's say, if there were 2,000 people at the show, I would say, I don't know, maybe 10% were wearing masks. A couple of the photographers in the pit had masks on, but that was really it. They weren't really handling, like, there wasn't really, you can't distance at a punk rock hardcore show.
True, at this point, I know just from what I've seen, it's just basically people think it's over, and maybe it is, and it could be over. Who knows? I don't know.
I think we've been a little blessed, maybe, that like Boston got hit really hard at the very beginning. We've been really good in terms of vaccination rates and COVID, super low COVID rates for the last few months. So I think that made everybody feel a little bit
for sure
better. But there's still, like, there's a lot of people that I know that didn't go because they just think it's too early, or they live with people,
I'll tell you what,
immunocompromised, or
walking around New York, at least in the area that I'm staying in, everybody's still got a fucking mask on, even on the streets. I think that this city just got shell shocked. You know what I mean? It got hit hard. So I'm really curious to see how the show goes tonight. I'm curious if anybody's going to show up. It's like, feels like this city definitely feels very on edge about it still. So
that's interesting. Yeah.
I know that they just opened up 3 days ago. That's when the mask mandates went away. So I think that people are still adjusting.
Yeah. Ours was June 15th when the state of emergency was lifted. And I don't think anybody had masks on at the Corey Brannon show a week and a half ago.
I mean, Denver stopped giving a fuck about masks May 1st. They just were whatever. They didn't care. Yeah. I don't know why. So I'm used to it, but it's interesting coming back to the East Coast and seeing people here. We played a show in New York, I think like 4 days before everything shut down. We had a show on like March 11th last year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And just like we were riding in the subways, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like everybody was wearing masks and shit. I was like, this is bullshit. Like, whatever, dude. This is gonna blow over in a week.
Right.
And then yeah, here we are.
Yeah, a good friend of mine played. He was supposed to play on his birthday, March 12th. He played March 11th in New York City. Was supposed to come up here and play Boston on his birthday, and that was the first show. He made it like to Connecticut, and everybody was like, "No, like we got to cancel. It's too sketchy right now."
Yeah,
so that was
sure.
literally the last thing.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's been a wild year, man. Fuck. Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to be following along with you and doing this, and I'll be keeping track of how the ride goes. Like I said, it's something I've always wanted to do in the back of my brain. I won't take up too much of your evening. I know you got a show planned tonight. But
I appreciate it, and I really appreciate you talking to me today. And yeah, maybe I'll call back and we can catch up and see where I'm at, like midpoint or something.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm super interested.